Mitch Marner returns to Toronto. What type of welcome do you expect from Leafs Nation? You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Thank you for making the Locked On Leafs podcast part of your daily listening routine. And just a reminder that if you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club. You get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more. All built for our most loyal fans. You can click on the link down below in the description to learn more about and join our team's community. Welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Like I said, Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you. It's a big one tonight, Dave. Mitch Marner returns to Toronto. You expecting it to be as feisty as I am?
Yeah, it just seems like the momentum's really building. I think it kind of got started with the game last week in Vegas and the reception that Marner was getting in Vegas. I think that kind of got the pot boiling a little bit. It hasn't fully reached its peak just yet, but I think we're getting there.
Well, the man got booed in his own barn last week by some traveling Leaf fans. And, you know, I TSN had the game and Mike Johnson was on overdrive. Maybe it was on First Up. He was on one of the TSN stations this morning, and they were talking about the expected return and the reception that he's going to get. And we'll dive into this. And he said there was probably only about 20% Leaf fans in the building that night. But those 20% were loud, and they drowned out any possible cheer that went Mitch Marner's way. He was getting booed in his own barn. And I think that's kind of what makes you think if only 20% of that arena of Leaf fans was able to make that much noise, imagine you put him in Scotiabank Arena when he steps out onto the ice, when he touches the puck for the first time. It's going to be loud. I fully anticipate the Boo Birds to be as loud as they possibly can. What type of reception are you expecting at Leafs Nation tonight when he steps onto the ice for the first time as a Vegas Golden Knight?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been writing an article kind of looking back at how former players return, like in their like higher profile names when they return to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not something the Leafs Nation really has done.
What?
Booed? Yeah, like former players. Like you look at like the list. I'll give you. I mean, those who are getting a bit of a sneak peek because the article is not going to come out till later on. Probably later, or let's say late morning Friday. I looked at like Matt Sundin. That's the most notable one. No one's booing Matt Sundin, even though what happened at the end there where the media really tried to spin the whole you didn't waive your no trade clause, you really screwed the franchise there. I don't like that. That wasn't enough to make Leafs fans turn on Matt Sundin. So there was that one. Dion Phaneuf, it's interesting because he gets booed now. Like when he was with the Senators in his own building, he got booed. But when he came back to Toronto the first time, he didn't get booed. He was given a good ovation with the tribute video helped. He was pretty emotional, actually, kind of surprised looking back on that. So like Phaneuf didn't get booed. Kadri, there was no real reason to boo Nazem Kadri when he came back. Phil Kessel is the only one out of the whole group of players. And the part of the reason, I think, Phil Kessel didn't even get a tribute video, if you remember.
Which is very interesting that they didn't give Kessel a tribute, but anyone gets a tribute video nowadays. I mean, Alex Kerfoot got a tribute video when he came back.
Rules, baby. Lou Lamoriello had his rules. No tribute videos.
Yeah, I guess so. And Yeah, that actually like somewhat surprises me, although it doesn't. But like I would say Mitch Marner falls closer to the Phil Kessels of the world, though, than he does like the Matt Sundins, the Nazem Kadris. Like those guys were beloved by a majority of the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Marner was a very split, kind of,
He was a
like
polarizing figure.
very polarized. That's the word I was looking for. Like fans very split on Mitch Marner. Either, I think everyone appreciated the skill set he had and what he was able to do, the production that he had throughout his career. But ultimately, there's a lot of people that didn't appreciate didn't appreciate Marner, and the fact that he faded in the playoffs didn't help. And even when he got, let go and the Maple Leafs decided not to bring him back, / he decided to leave, it was still very split. Half the fan base was happy to see him go, and half the fan base sat back and said, "You wait, you're going to regret letting a player of this caliber walk and replacing him with, 3 league average players," which is essentially what they did. Now, 50 games into the year, and you could argue that he may be the Maple Leafs to this point. You could look at it and say maybe they wish that they had Mitch Marner, but we won't really know till the playoffs. But I would say that Marner's a different situation because, again, the guys that you mentioned, I don't think anybody besides Matt's was in the same stratosphere as Mitch Marner, right?
No.
And Marner always villainized himself within the media.
Mhm.
Marner never won anything, but there was always high expectations, at least with Dion and with Phil. But there's no expectations, right? Kadri, he was there through the crap years. No real expectations on him either. There's a lot of expectations on Mitch Marner, and he failed to, deliver year in, year out when those expectations were at the highest in the playoffs. So for that reason, a lot of people just, were very turned off of Marner and wanted him gone. And he gladly left, right? Like he gladly left and wanted to go pursue something new. And he went to Vegas. And I think that also annoyed Leaf fans that he just up and went. And then there was the fact that he could have, did the trade, I guess, similar to Sundin, where he could have waived his no trade clause and they
Mhm.
could have got Mikko Rantanen as part of the deal. So that kind of leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And then he ends up walking as a free agent. And I think the difference too is like Sundin, it was at the end of Sundin's career. He wanted to chase a cup. It wasn't going to happen in Toronto. Marner's in the prime of his career, and he still
Yeah.
could have came back to Toronto to pursue a championship with this team that was built, to contend. And he said, "No, I'm gonna jump ship and go elsewhere." Like it's just a different situation. I don't know if we've seen an animal like a polarizing animal like Mitch Marner here in Toronto. I think there are going to be people that cheer. Don't get me wrong, but I think the boo birds will be much louder. I think there's a lot more vitriol with Marner's departure than there is any of those other players. So a lot of those other guys too, like they were traded away. It's not that they had much say.
Yeah.
Marner could have stayed multiple times, had the opportunity to stay, and even at the end of the year, sounded like Treliving circled back and said, "Hey, what's it going to take?" And we found out through a Steve Simmons article that he was shopping for real estate in Vegas all the way back in like February. So he wasn't coming back anyway. So I think a mixture of all of that and the allegations, on his way out, kind of throwing some shade at the city and the fan base. I think a lot of people are going to be upset with that departure, and they'll let him know how they feel in tonight's game. I guarantee it. I think the Boo Birds will be out there. Like you get the cheer, the
Mhm.
cheer when they do the tribute, which hopefully I mean, they will do a tribute video. I'm sure it'll be very well done. And,
Yep.
the people set aside their hatred for 30 seconds to, give him his round of applause, to give him his flowers, which are deserved. But then they'll go right back to the booing. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see a little bit of a moment where it's, you give him a moment with the crowd. Two thoughts come to my mind. If you look at Ellie Freeman kind of touches on what went wrong with the whole Marner situation. And he talks about how the Leafs had an inkling that Marner was showing interest in going to Vegas. And they were
Mhm.
trying to see if they could do something with Vegas, but Vegas is like, why do we make a trade with you when we think we're going to get him in the following offseason? So that part I think also ticked off Leafs fans, knowing that there was already an inkling that Marner was not fully in with the Leafs. And the other point is like I was like thinking of examples, right, of former Leafs and how they got greeted in the return to Toronto. I'm like, there's a scenario that involves a current Leaf that plays out, I think, very similar to the Marner situation. That's John Tavares' return to the island. I had two friends that were in the arena that day. Now, I think it was a lot more heartbreaking because no one on the island wanted Tavares to leave. They were devastated.
Yeah.
They felt betrayed. Like that hurt a lot more.
Yeah. The only difference there, I think, is like Tavares was the captain and the
Yeah,
face of the franchise. Marner wasn't the face. Like that's the
true.
slight difference. But I get it where, a lot of the fans are going to be, maybe not equally, but they'll certainly have a level of passion like you saw with the Tavares
Yeah.
return. I think you're right that we could see it play out similarly.
Now, I don't think anyone is going to be throwing snakes at Mitch Marner. I don't think anyone's. Make sure no one's bringing any waffles in the arena. Like, let's not have Wafflegate 2.0 for those who remember that reference back in the day. But
Yeah.
I do think that there is going. Like, we remember when Marner was not fully committed to returning, and as part of like the reply in one of the tweets, his address was thrown out there. And that led to the security risks that came with it. And it kind of felt like the last, like Marner just like, okay, like this, I can't, like the fan base kind of turned in a big way against him, right? When he made those comments out. Granted, those comments are not exactly going to be received very well. I don't know if he expected a different reaction when you don't say. I get it. He's not going to promise something and then turn back on that promise. I'll give him credit for that. He stuck to not committing himself, but at the same time, he didn't commit, and that Leafs fans remember that, and they're not going to forget it.
No, they're not. And, he's having success over in Vegas, second on the team in points, 52 points in 49 games. So he's over a point per game. He's starting to really heat up, though. That's the thing with Marner. He typically started to get going even when he was with the Leafs in like January, mid-Jan. You'd see him kind of hit some sort of like speed boost and start picking up points left, right, and center. You look at his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 multi-point outings in his last 9 games. 12 points in total over his last 9 games, including 2 helpers in last week's win over the Toronto Maple Leafs, where, again, we remember it fondly. Vegas came back. The Leafs collapsed, and the Golden Knights won that one 6-5 in their own barn. Now it's in Toronto. Can the Maple Leafs get their revenge and end up with a full 2 points and kind of send Mitch Marner packing with a sulk the way that they did in Vegas last week? We'll come back. We'll preview the game. We'll get into the nitty gritty. And in honor of Mitch Marner's return to Toronto, we got a little Friday 4-pack. We're taking a look at 4 players who deserve to be booed by Leafs Nation. So we're looking at some active players who deserve to be booed by Leafs Nation. And we're doing a little draft style too, so it should be interesting. Does Marner come up in the conversation? We'll see if one of us have the balls to pull the trigger on Marner in our little draft. So that'll be later on in the podcast. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like most. You just make your picks and apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack in every NFL playoff game day. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Let us know down below if you were inside Scotiabank Arena, would you boo or would you cheer Mitch Marner the first time he touches the ice? I want to hear from the fans down below. I think the boo birds are going to be louder than the cheers. There'll be some people stand up, give him a clap just to try and drown it out, but ultimately boos are a lot easier to pick up on the microphone than cheers often. So I think it'll be loud, and I think is he going to rattle Mitch Marner? That's a question that I wonder too. Like, do you think the boo birds will rattle Marner? Because that's a guy, his entire career in Toronto, like really, wears his heart on the sleeve, and you can tell when that guy's frustrated. And I wonder if it's going to impact his game tonight.
It could. And maybe he'll actually find some motivation from it, right? Because he's allowed things to. In fairness, it's tough. Like when you're feel like you're being singled out, but he's had a hard time getting past the criticism, getting past the hostility.
That's what I mean. It's like I'm not sure if going into that environment, like he hasn't succeeded in that environment in the past. Why is tonight going to be any different? Maybe because he's in a Golden Knights uniform. Is that why it's different?
Like his Jack Eichel came out and he says like we're going to be there for him. Like they know this is going to be hard for Marner, and he's going to have the support, I guess, from the Golden Knights to.
He'll have support. He'll have support, but
he's going to have to do he's going to have to put up the big boy pants and take care of business himself too, which your point is hasn't really been able to rise to those occasions quite often.
Dave, how much pressure do you think he's going to put on himself to be a big time difference maker tonight, to try and be the best player on the ice? Like, he's going to put pressure on himself, and typically he doesn't live up to that pressure when he's overthinking things. He makes blunders, or makes some weird plays, and he tries to do some odd spinorama backhand passes trying to make that flashy play, and it gets costly. We saw it happen in the playoffs last year when he tries to do a little too much. So that's my thing. Like, is that the Mitch Marner we see? The Mitch Marner that kind of folds in the playoffs when there's pressure on him, or the free-flowing Mitch Marner that's been skating around for Vegas the last couple of weeks that, again, 12 points in his last 9 games. The Mitch Marner that looked pretty good last week when they were in Vegas, but now they're in Toronto, the Fishbowl. And I'll be curious to see how he specifically performs tonight. Let's take a look at the lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights. Looks like we're going to see Mitch Marner playing down the middle once again, which still takes a little bit of – it's interesting that the Leafs never really tried that, actually. Like, Marner's playing down the center of the ice quite often in Vegas, and it's just a guy who's so good defensively. Why they never really gave that a good look. They always tried to force feed Willie into the center of the ice. Why they never gave Marner a true opportunity there is kind of interesting to me. But he'll be on the second line centering Pavel Dorofeyev, who had a couple of goals in the last game against the Maple Leafs, and Riley Smith. You got Ivan Barbashev, Jack Eichel, and Mark Stone on your top line. Bauman, Hurdle, and Kolesar on the third line. Reinhart, Lachinsky, and Holtz on your fourth line. Defensively, Jeremy Lauzon and Shea Theodore, Noah Hannafin, and I believe Anderson will be making his return to the lineup. Is Anderson going to be playing in this game? If he does, I expect him to be on a pairing with Noah Hannafin and pick up where they left off from their time in Calgary. Hutton and Coughlin as your third pair, and then Aiden Hill as the starting goaltender.
So here's the latest on Anderson. He was with the team in Boston. They're not sure he'll be able to play. It's an immigration visa issue. It's not a health or roster issue.
Well, here's where I find interesting is if he's going to be playing in Canada, is that a problem? Or is it because he plays for an American team now?
Yeah, I think it's because he plays for an American team.
Okay.
Yeah. So Cassidy said like he wasn't entirely sure. Immigration is the only concern. There is a chance, otherwise he wouldn't be with the team right now. So I
Okay.
guess if they can get that all cleared up, then he should be okay.
So the Golden Knights did lose last night to the Boston Bruins 4-3 in regulation. Akira Schmid was the starting goaltender, which is why we have pretty good authority to project Aiden Hill as the starter in this one. But the Maple Leafs are getting them on the second night of a back-to-back. And if I'm not mistaken, the Leafs, when they went into Vegas, they were on the second night of a back-to-back too, I believe, if I recall. So now it's the shoe's on the other foot here, where the Leafs have an opportunity now. If they can just kind of stay with it for the first 40 minutes and don't allow Vegas to run away with it, they should be able to wear them down, tire them out, and take advantage in the third period with them coming off a game here tonight. By the way, side note, the NHL schedule makers, like, why couldn't they have made this a Saturday night game, by the way? Like I think
the NHL is just so perplexing when it comes to matchups and how they do the schedule.
Well, I mean, someone made a good point because I posed this to Twitter, and someone made a good point saying, well, a good chance that these dates were all pretty well solidified before Marner actually signed and went there, which is fair. But I mean, you got Vegas coming to town to play Toronto. I mean, why? And you have an opportunity to have it on a Saturday. Why wouldn't you? There's nothing planned at Scotiabank Arena on Saturday. There's nothing planned. It's an empty building that night, and neither team plays on Saturday either. Now, they both play the next day on Sunday, but you've got Vegas on a back-to-back regardless. So why not just have Friday, have them both be off on the Friday, and have them both play on the Saturday and the Sunday? And then you
Saturday night is your prime hockey night.
Right.
It's the big. It'll get the most eyeballs. Now Friday night's not bad either, but nobody thinks Friday night hockey night in Canada. It's Saturday night. Now the schedule was released on July 16th. I did look back on that date. Now it was released that day, but I'm sure it was all put together well before then.
But even if Marner signs in Toronto, Vegas, Leafs, like, that's a big game, right? If they're coming to the East Coast and you got them penciled in, should we play them on a Friday or a Saturday? It should always be Saturday. Like, that should not be. I could understand if there was a concert that was already planned, or the Raptors
game,
or like Monday Night Raw is going to be at Scotiabank on Monday. Like, if it was a Monday, okay, they got to move around some other events, but it's an empty building and neither team is playing on Saturday. Why couldn't you have just made it a Saturday night matchup? The NHL schedule makers, I think, kind of dropped the ball on that one. Regardless if it was Marner's return, either way, Vegas Leafs Saturday night, like, that'd be a big game. And now that Marner's return is baked into it, it's even bigger. And unfortunately, it's on a Friday, and it's the Golden Knights coming off of a back-to-back instead of both teams being well rested on a Saturday night tilt. But anyways, that's not
someone in the league office has just got to say, hey, Gary, let's I think we're going to move this. Like, we've seen it all the time in the NFL. They will move matchups. They think about these things. The NBA thinks about this all the time, how they can capitalize on the drama. Like, it's sad that the NHL really didn't think about, like, a whole Saturday in Toronto to think about this game. Just doesn't have it. Again, Friday night won't be so bad, but it's still one of those missed opportunities for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The player to watch tonight for the Toronto or for the Vegas Golden Knights first, we'll go with Pavel Dorofeyev. I mean, the easy answer is Mitch Marner. Clearly, everyone's going to be locked into him. But Pavel Dorofeyev is a player, man, that you definitely got to keep an eye on when he's out there on the ice. Scored twice in the game last week against the Maple Leafs. He's got 21 goals, 37 points on the season already for the Vegas Golden Knights. So, for Vegas, of course, you want to make sure you know where Eichel is at all times, where Stone is, where Marner. But this Pavel Dorofeyev cat, he's dangerous as well. So the Leafs got to make sure that they keep him in check.
Yeah, I mean, he should have had a hat trick in that game. They got fortunate that they got the review wiped off the board, and Philip Myers wasn't totally thrown under the bus. he should have been after that play. Yeah, I mean he's been just. You wonder why Vegas has been able to do what they've been able to do all these years. Like you find a player like Pavel Dorofeyev, it's just it's at times you just think it's unfair. Like 79th overall pick. That's how you build a team like Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Now he has taken off, right? It's been a slow development for him. A few years in the AHL, he started to show some real promise. Now playing with Mitch Marner, when you play with the Mitch Marner, this is what Mitch Marner can really do. He can help elevate a guy like him. Now he had 35 goals last year before Marner came into the fold, so he had already seen him take that leap, that next step. But with Marner, this is what he can do. He can elevate a goal scorer like Pavel Dorofeyev. So, yeah, he's a player that I'm definitely jealous of, just because he's a player that Vegas got with a third-round pick that's turned into a really solid, productive player.
And a guy with size and speed, a combination that the Maple Leafs desperately want to try and find for dudes in their middle six. For the Maple Leafs, who are we keeping an eye on when it comes to the Leafs here, Dave?
Well, some people call him the Mitch Marner light, Matias Maccelli.
He was supposed to be.
Would
you say he's lived up to that billing? I'm not. He's played a lot better of late, and he did play better. He played actually really well in that game against Vegas last week. He had a couple of assists in that one. He's up to 19 points after a really slow start. He's actually eclipsed his entire point mark from a season ago. But I still think that when you look at the year as a whole, it's been an underwhelming acquisition for the Maple Leafs. I don't think they've quite gotten, the Mitch Marner light that they were anticipating when they acquired him. But hey, with Marner in the building, it's a chance for him to respond and, show Leaf fans, hey, you don't have to miss that guy that much. I can be here. I could do some similar things. So I think he's a guy played well last time. They went toe-to-toe with Mitch Marner. I expect for him to be a key player again tonight.
I do. I've seen him. He's had the puck on his stick a lot more. That's been a noticeable change for him. He's showing off his ability to carry the puck and do things like that. Yeah, I think that I've seen, again, you can overall season, you look at the production, you say, it hasn't really been lights out. But when you put it in the context of how it started, right? Like we were wondering, like, did the Matias Maccelli experiment fail? Like, should they just cut their losses and trade him now? That could end up being the case if the Leafs are not in a position to be in the playoffs and they feel that they need to get some assets in return. And you could do something like that. But I think what we've seen from Maccelli lately is, I don't know how many people thought at this point, considering how the season started, that he would be a mainstay in the top six and kind of help mitigate as much as he can mitigate the loss of William Nylander to help keep the offense going, because that's been tough, right? Now I think he's still got room to grow. I think he still needs to produce more. He's got to find ways to try to shoot a bit more and things like that. But I do think that he is shown steady improvements. Now, I'm not ready to say that the trade was a complete win for the Leafs, or it's all worked out. I think you need to see more from him, but I think it's better than what we saw to start the year.
Yeah, 10 points in his last 17 games. He's gone 3 straight without registering a point here. So he did have 10 points in a 14-game stretch, including that game against Vegas. But the last 3, although ice time has gone up, he's playing, some big minutes, with Nylander out, has yet to turn that into production. But I think tonight, where I expect for him to be involved in some capacity. All right, Dave, let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll get to our draft, our Friday 4-pack. 5 players who deserve to be booed by Leafs Nation. That's next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Welcome back into the Locked On at Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, David Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, with brand new episodes of the Locked On Leafs podcast, bringing you everything you want to know about the Toronto Maple Leafs each and every weekday, Monday to Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Just an update for tonight's game, by the way. It doesn't sound like Oliver Ekman-Larsson will be able to play tonight. He sustained that injury, left in the first period of the last game. Won't play tonight. Might miss a couple of games here with an injury. Brandon Carlo also injured in the game. That was kind of underreported up until today. So he'll be a game time decision for this one. Although I did see he did do media on Thursday. So maybe that indicates that he's leaning towards playing, but he did get banged up in that game. So now you do have kind of a battered and bruised Brandon Carlo as well going into tonight's tilt against the Vegas Golden Knights. So just a quick update on the injuries there, if you're wondering how that all shook out over the course of the last 24 hours for the Maple Leafs blue line. All right, so we're fully anticipating the Boo Birds to be really loud tonight for Mitch Marner. But I thought it'd be fun to kind of take a peek around the league and do a little do a Friday 4-pack of players who deserve to be booed by Leafs Nation. You can make the argument whether or not Mitch Marner deserves to be celebrated and cheered, a la Jonathan Toews a couple days ago in Chicago. They're still clapping and cheering for that guy, I think, actually, at the United Center. But I don't anticipate anything quite like that tonight at Scotiabank Arena. But we decided to talk about some players that kind of like villainous players around the league and some guys who deserve to be booed by Leafs Nation. We're gonna do a draft. So we're gonna kind of do a fun little draft where we'll do it 4 rounds each. So we'll end up with 4 players, and we'll see who can draft the most hated team by Leafs Nation. You want the first overall pick, Dave? I can gift it to you if you want it.
All right. Yeah, I mean, like, if you don't pick this player, then you haven't been paying attention the last few years. Like Brad Marchand.
Last decade.
Yeah. Maybe longer. Like start with 2010.
Right. Yeah.
Leo Komarov would definitely agree with this selection.
Yes. Yeah. And Brad Marchand's the most, hated non-Maple Leaf in the league, right? Like he just absolutely is. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of Leaf fans would love to have him on the team. That's not the same thing, but the fact that he's not, and he was with Boston for years, and then he chose to stay in Florida on, a long-term sweetheart deal, kind of just instead of coming to the Maple Leafs, which we had later heard was kind of his other option he was weighing, just kind of makes you want to boo him even more. No? Like, yeah, Marchand's that's the first overall pick all day, twice on Friday too. I wish I could take him with my next pick. But I would go with his teammate Sam Bennett with my pick. I mean, Sam Bennett's a guy who's really ruffling feathers with Leaf fans. He can go back to the playoffs. Remember he hurt Matthew Nyes in behind the net there in that first playoffs a couple of years ago. And then obviously him running into the goaltender, injuring Anthony Stolarz in the playoffs last year. It just is always getting into the mix there with some face washes and, laying big hits. But Sam Bennett's a guy who Maple Leafs fans gotta hate to play right now. And, they've booed their fair share of Sam Bennett's over the last couple of years here. So I'll take him with my first pick.
Yeah, solid pick. Really don't like the guy. Even though there was a chance that people were thinking maybe the Leafs could have gone after him in the offseason, but
both of them, yeah. Could have went after both. Again, you love to hate him or you hate to love him, right? It's one of those things. It's like, I hate this guy, but I'd take him on my team. Take
exactly.
Most of the players on this list, I think the Maple Leafs would take on their team. Who you got with your second pick?
I got to go with another rival team, and I'm going to go to Ottawa, Brady Tkachuk.
Oh, okay. All right, continue. Explain.
Sorry, Ross. Sorry, Pilsy. Cannot stand the guy. He's all about the toughness, right? Wants to get in the mix a lot. Everyone likes to compliment his game. Power forward. You probably would want Brady Tkachuk on your team, but he is not the most pleasant player to play against. He likes to stir the pot. He likes to get in the grill of opposing teams, and not really a pleasant player if you're the opposition. So yeah, and he's also the captain of the Senators. It's almost like a right. It's like the right of Leafs fans to boo the Senators captain always.
Yeah, rite of passage there. But I don't think Brady Tkachuk is as hated by Leaf fans as his brother Matthew, and that's who I'm going to take with my second pick. So we're both going to take a Tkachuk brother on our team. But I mean, you talked about Matthew Tkachuk. Brady never eliminated Toronto from the playoffs. Matthew has twice. So for that reason, and I continue to always remember, Matthew Tkachuk a couple of years ago laughing in Mitch Marner's face and just ragdolling him and trying to knock him off of his game, and he's always going to be in the mix and an agitator in the same vein as his brother. I mean, both those Tkachuk brothers are both pain in the asses, but I think if you asked and you polled 50 Leaf fans, who do you hate more, Matthew or Brady Tkachuk? I think a majority of them would go with Matthew. So
probably
I'll take that as a steal. I'll take that as a steal here with the 4th overall pick. Who are you taking with your next selection, your third selection?
A player that I've, again, you probably want him on your team, but he's a real pain in the rear, and especially this year with what he has done to a couple of Leaf players. It's Nikita Zadorov.
Oh, Zadorov. Okay.
Injuring Austin Matthews for a good period. He also took out Scott Laughton. He's a guy that, he's so big and feels like he gets a bit of leniency from the NHL when it comes to hits that he delivers. I didn't like the Scott Laughton one. I felt like that one should have been looked at for supplemental. It didn't. And some people are just like, he's big and that's the way he plays. It's like, okay, you can't just let a player do what he wants because he's big. And you don't really have, and like, how do you go up against a guy like that? Like, you don't have another mammoth that can stand up to a Nikita Zadorov. And yeah, he's just, the Leafs, I think at one point also looked into getting Zadorov, and that didn't happen. And he went and signed with Boston. So, I mean, how can you like a Nikita Zadorov?
Yeah, it's you make a lot of good points there. There's a long list of reasons not to like Nikita Zadorov and boo him when he touches the ice on Scotiabank Arena. That's what we're doing. It's a Friday four-pack of players who deserve to be booed at Scotiabank Arena by Leafs Nation. So far, you've got Brad Marchand, Brady Tkachuk, and Nikita Zadorov. I've got Sam Bennett, Matthew Tkachuk with my third pick. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take him. Mitch Marner. I think Mitch Marner deserves to be booed at this point. Yeah, I think he deserves to be booed, and he's going to be tonight. Absolutely. I think there's just a lot of animosity, and they didn't end on a positive note, and there's always been some sort of, vitriol between him and the media and the fan base. And, Marner he never got it done, and he wanted to leave, and he couldn't help Toronto when they needed it most in the playoffs. He held out for all the money he possibly could. I think Mitch Marner for me is very deserved to be booed tonight at Scotiabank Arena. So I'll take him with my third selection, 6th overall. We're going with Mitch Marner. Welcome to the team.
Welcome to the team, Mitch. We don't like you. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about that one a lot.
Yeah.
So we're not to spend much time talking about that one, but I will put Mitch Marner.
You're pulling the trigger on I don't blame you.
I am. Who are you taking with your final selection?
I have a couple of players here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with a former Leaf as well.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. I don't have a former Leaf on my draft board, so I'm curious to see who you got.
Well, the trade brought together one of our biggest videos ever that we did on the podcast.
Trade, okay.
the Leafs acquired this guy. Everyone was so hyped, thinking Cup was on its way.
Ryan O'Reilly?
Ryan O'Reilly.
Really? You'd boo Ryan O'Reilly?
Absolutely. Because
Why?
not only did he decide not to stay in Toronto, but then we had to hear the little rumblings that he didn't really care too much about the Toronto market. And he's stirring up a lot of this stuff about the locker room. And, he wanted to go to a place where he wasn't going to be bothered by fans and other stuff. And it's like, you came here and you were treated so well. Like it was like he got an endorsement deal almost right away, which it's a little nice money in your pocket. I don't think fans had really much anything negative to say. And I don't even think the media was ever really that critical of Ryan O'Reilly. And yet he made it seem as if it was like one of the worst, not the worst experiences, but was not the most enjoyable experience that he had. And I'm just like, really, guy? So I would boo him. I would say, wasn't a very, it was another one of those, didn't really help the Leafs to go over take them to the next step. If he had done well and left, that would have been okay. But it was just like another one of those trade deadline deals. Didn't really work out for the team. And now we have to hear that the guy didn't even really enjoy being a player that wasn't really hated here. Didn't sit well with me.
You've sold me, Dave. You've sold me, which is great because I couldn't see the vision at the start. Yeah. I'm like this guy's a pretty well-liked player around the NHL. And typically when I think of guys you hate, it's pests, pests that piss you off, because they've done something dirty or, they've scored a big goal or a big check or they injured your player. But no, you went the other route. You're just pissed off because the guy decided to leave and threw some dirt at the fan base and the media on the way out. Kind of appreciate that. You sold me. I think there's a reason. There's a reason to boo Ryan O'Reilly. But the last player who I am taking in my draft is between two people. Realistically, it's between two different players. But I'm going to go off the board here. The players I'm not going to take, we'll call them honorable mentions. Corey Perry, to me, was an honorable mention.
On my list.
Yeah, on my list. Radko Gudas, honorable mention on my list.
On my list.
But I mean, this guy, I think he got booed when he came to Toronto after a specific incident occurred. Ridly Greig.
Good pick. Absolutely fantastic pick.
Yeah.
I don't know how, I probably would have picked him over freaking Brady Tkachuk.
100%. That's why when you said Ottawa, I was like, okay, he's going to take Greig that early. I thought that'd be a nice little snipe in the final round, a little late gem. That's a Brock Purdy level pick right there. But Ridly Greig, the slap shot on the empty net, and it forced
the bobblehead hurt around the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think most Leaf fans will never forgive him for that. He's a big pest of a player, and he's a pretty good player. He's a guy who hasn't necessarily been all too healthy through his entire career, but Ridly Greig, I think for as long as he's an Ottawa Senator, will be one of the more hated Senators for as long as I can think. He's going to be for his entire career pretty much because of that one action and the fact that he's kind of a dink as well out there on the ice. But he's an effective player and he's a good player.
He likes to stir the pot too. He takes Brady's lead in a lot of ways than that.
Yeah, he's got a little Marchand in him, right? He's got a little bit of that a-hole in his game, and I can appreciate that. And I wish there was a couple guys on the Leafs who, could do that and could be that. But certainly there's some hatred towards Ridly Greig. And if he got booed every time he came to the city, wouldn't surprise me. So we'll make that with my final pick. So I got Sam Bennett, Matt Tkachuk, Mitch Marner, and Ridly Greig. Dave decided to go with Brad Marchand, Brady Tkachuk, Nikita Zadorov, and then Ryan O'Reilly. Yeah, Ryan O'Reilly with the final selection. Good stuff. You think we hear the boos though, right?
I do. Talking about it, I think we do. We'll see how that all plays out.
Yep. Should be a good game. I mean, the last one was exhilarating. 6-5, went to overtime. I mean, should be a really, really good game. The Leafs they're definitely hurting on the blue line. So they'll have to play a complete 200-foot effort, 5 men below the hash marks, complete team buy-in. Because every point at this stage of the season is important. And you don't want to let Mitch Marner walk away with 2 points in your own barn. There's going to be a lot of juice to this one, just like there was in the last one in Vegas last week. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekends. Enjoy a game tonight, Marner in town, but then the Avs also in town on Sunday. So we'll come back on Monday and recap both of those games. So that's what we got in store for you guys on Monday. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.